Hello and welcome to Unit 2 Financial Math for the 2L course. So this is a continuation from last course, the 1L course, and it's just extending everything we talked about last year with the financial math. So what our topic is for the first unit or lesson is working with percent. So what I want you to be able to do is I want you to be able to solve questions that give you either a percent, a total, or a part and determine the missing value. So what I have down here for us is a quick setup. I like using the triangle because it's a visual and it helps you remember what operations are involved. So really what we're doing here, maybe from grade 8, you remember that calculating a percentage is equal to your amount divided by your total, so how much you could get, multiplied by 100. Okay? So that formula can get complicated if we have to rearrange it. So what I've done is I've come up with a general triangle here to help you with your operations. Okay? So in the top of this triangle, we're going to write what you got. All right? So if you got 15 out of 30, if you got 70 out of 100, so it's what you got. I'm going to, instead of writing that every time, I'm going to use the letter G to go in that part of the triangle. All right. Now, the total down here is the possible total. So if you are looking at, you could possibly get 100 marks, this would be your possible total. And for simplicity, you're just going to call that or shorten that down to a T. And then over here is going to be our percent. And I'm going to have it over 100. And I'm going to show you how the triangle works in the next example or the next slide. But basically what happens is if we want to, if we know this information, because they're side by side, we end up with multiplication. All right. If we know this information in this direction, then we will use division. And similarly, if we know that information, we will use division as well. And I'm going to show you exactly how this works. Okay? You need to have some, in order to do this, typically we talk about using algebra, but algebra sometimes isn't our strength. And in all honesty, you're not going to probably use algebra. It's not something you use in everyday life. But a nice little triangle, something that you can remember for future reference. So we're going to use that triangle to help with these, and you can see how it works. So we're going to find the missing value. So again, this is what our triangle will look like. All right, so it's percent over 100, the total, and what I got. So start filling in my information. So I got 45 out of 75 points. What was the percent value? So the key here, what are we looking for? We're looking for the percent value, which means we're looking for the value of this square here. All right. So that means I must know the other information. So I got 45. Well, that's my G value, 45, and it was out of a possible or a total of 70. All right. So that means that we're looking at those two values there. Because they're one on top of the other, we're going to use division. So that means that my total will be 45 divided by 70, which gives us, so remember you do the top divided by the bottom, and I get 0.64, which is 64%. Okay? Now you don't have to write out every step I have there. Okay, I'm just doing this for the notes so you can see, look back and see the steps. All right, so those are the steps to solve for that particular problem. Next one, the percentage problem. So I'll start with my triangle. What I would do is probably write this on your notes somewhere so you can have an easy reference. All right, so fill in my triangle with what information I'm given. So what out of 70 is 30%? Now this one's worded a little trickier. It's not quite as clear, but hey, 30% is something you should be able to pick out. So that means I know 30 over 100. So my percentage over 100, so I know that. Now this is where you got to decode a little bit. What out of? So to me, out of means this is my possible total. So my total is 70, which means I'm looking for what I got. So what did I get out of 70 to give me 30%? All right. How's the triangle work? They're side by side. So that means I'm going to use multiplication. So I'm going to punch into my calculator, 30 divided by 100 multiplied by 70. And you punch that into the calculator, oops, and you get 21. So that's what I got. Therefore, I got 21. All right. Final example. It's a percentage question again. So I'll set up my triangle. I got my total, my percent out of 100. Now I fill in my information, so I redraw the triangle. Like I said, as you get quicker, you probably don't need the triangle as often, or you can skip a step here. 55 out of what total is 65%? Now this one I think is easier than number 2. Number 2 for me is always the hard one, because this one, it tells me my percent, so I have 65 over 100. And it says right here in the question, what total? So that means we don't know the total. So that means t is the unknown, which means the other number is what I got. Now, because we are working with these pieces of information, we're going to be using division. Okay? So what does that translate to? Top divided by bottom of the triangle. So divided by 65 over 100, or divided by 100. All right? So, now you have to be careful here because BEDMAS says we got to do order of operations. 65 over 100, it's got to be done first. Okay? We need to know what 65 divided by 100 is. So you got to be a little bit careful here because this is the only trick for the whole process here. So I'm going to just work down a little bit here. So this is really 55 divided by 65 divided by 100 is 0.65. So you really got to divide by, you have to figure this out first in every case anyway. So always figure that out first. When you do that, 55 divided by 0.65 will be 84.6. Okay, so very tricky. Okay, they're not, they will be a little bit frustrating, but once you get the hang or comfortable with that triangle, it works pretty slick. So at this point in time of the lesson, it's time to pause to try practice these before we get into the word problems. So work on that worksheet, get it completed, get it checked by the teacher, and then I'll see you for the second half of this video.